Okay, we're here at the Gartner Expo at the Gold Coast 2022, talking to George Dragatsis from Hitachi Vantara. George is the CTO, among many other things, and we're talking at the moment about apps and data, basically. And George, you talk about being app smart, and we've heard this term sort of app-centric. Do you want to just explain how you understand that term and,
Yeah,
and what you think it means to customers?
yeah, absolutely. So it's interesting. We've experienced in the marketplace a lot of organisations are focused from the bottom up, which means everyone's focused from either the storage layer upwards. And if you kind of focus on the storage upwards, everything seems like a storage array, and it doesn't really show anything that is applicable to an application. And so one starts to think what drives business and what drives value for organisations. And one of the biggest items that we're talking about, especially with attendees here, is around their data. And so understanding the data and what relationship that has to the application is key to understanding what drives value for organisations. Understanding that also drives digital transformation. And so in turn, what we see is one has to work with the other. And so digital transformation drives digital services, innovation, and so on and so forth, which is more business focused and business centric. So in essence, we've moved away from looking at things from the bottom up. We've moved to a position where everything should be looked at from the top down. So if we understand the application, its relationship to the data it creates, and we're seeing it created in distributed fashion across multiple operating environments, whether it's on-prem or in a hybrid environment or in a multi-cloud environment, applications exist and touch multiple layers of an organization in many ways. And that is north, south, east, west from a technical architecture perspective. And so if we understand the way the application consumes platforms and how it creates the data and what data it creates and where it creates, we then can drive better innovation, better services, and become much more relevant to our end users who consume these services. So it's not about that layer underneath, it's all around the application data relationship which drives that innovation.
And with the explosion of both apps and the explosion of data, and thinking about where things are heading, what would you be saying to clients about what they should be thinking about?
So it's really important to understand the history of application architecture, because if you understand that, you understand then where application architecture is going, and also that also determines the data that it creates. So if you look historically at monolithic type workloads that added little value, were just focused and isolated, and we're looking now at application evolution through containerization, microservices-based architectures, and how it touches and creates data in distributed areas. It's important that when we're talking with customers and with prospects and with our partners as well, understand your application requirements, because that will then also drive your data types and your data requirements. So having insights around what you're doing with your applications, how your applications serve your end users, and how they're deployed in different environments for costing purposes, for performance purposes, for scalability purposes, and for modularity or composability purposes. It's important to have that view as opposed to any other from an app data perspective.
Okay. And then what are the implications then for infrastructure and for management around data?
It's critical. It's critical that infrastructure not only is built in with intelligence, but is built in with integration for applications. So gone are the days where you would buy specific pieces of hardware and they were unintelligent. They had no ability to understand what the application requires. And so it's important that technology today has a level of AI embedded to understand the application need, which is, for example, I can predict and I can preempt the requirements for an application to take an automatic snapshot, clone it, send it off to a different location for cost-effective archive, being able to restore it if I've been hit with a ransomware or a security threat as well. So infrastructure is becoming more and more intelligent, but infrastructure must also be flexible and scalable in the same way that applications are. So you can't have one without the other. You can't have a rigid technology layer, but a flexible application environment. They both need to align, integrate with AI part of that as well.
Okay. And then finally, like Hitachi is this, sort of enduring Japanese sort of conglomerate, like 900 odd businesses. Where do you see your particular business playing in the next few years?
It's a really good question, and I think the answer excites me even more. Hitachi Vantara is at the crossroads of every business we touch as a Hitachi parent organisation. Whether it's within the industry sector, the automotive, the manufacturing, the health, the banking sector, or any other area that we touch in, we try and become instrumental in driving insights across application and data and flexibility and simplicity within platforms and solutions. And that's across every sector of the marketplace, public, private sector, and so on. So we're seeing Hitachi Vantara drive a lot more intelligence across their solutions, our solutions. From an infrastructure perspective and an intelligence perspective, we're seeing Hitachi Vantara drive more insights across data. And that drives that insight that customers need. They need the right solutions and the right data to have the right insights and make the right decisions that are more relevant and effective to their businesses and their end users and customers as well.
George, thanks for your time.
You're welcome. My pleasure.